Most of us want to build something big, but we're trying to build it alone. And that's the real problem. When you realize this, everything changes. You know that feeling when you're working hard on something, but it never feels like enough? You're climbing the mountain, but the mountain seems to get taller the higher you go. Maybe it's your career. You're grinding, you're learning new skills, you're pushing yourself. But somewhere deep down, there's a whisper, is this actually going anywhere? And the scarier question, if I stop pushing, will everything collapse? Or maybe it's your relationship. You're trying to be enough for someone. You're adjusting, compromising, performing your best self. But you can feel it, the weight of carrying that alone. The weight of trying to make something work when you're only one person holding it up. Or it could be simpler than that. You have a dream. You want to build something for yourself, create something meaningful, maybe start a business or a project that matters to you. So you start small. You think, I'll just work harder than everyone else. I'll be more determined. I'll sacrifice more time, more sleep, more of myself. And you do. But 6 months in, or a year in, you hit a wall. And that wall whispers the same question, is this working? Or am I just tired? The exhaustion you feel isn't just physical. It's the exhaustion of trying to make something small become big through sheer force of will. Here's what most people don't talk about. You can't grow something big by yourself. Not because you're not capable. Not because you're not determined enough. But because you're operating with a fundamental misunderstanding about how scale works. There's a difference between doing big and thinking small, and trying harder. When you want to build something big, you need something bigger than yourself to build with. Not bigger people. Not a bigger team necessarily. But a bigger framework. A bigger idea. A bigger purpose. Think about it this way. If your foundation is only your own ambition, your own willpower, your own emotional state, then your ceiling is limited to what you can hold up by yourself. The best version of you, working every waking hour, has a limit. And when you're standing in the middle of your own life, exhausted, that limit feels very real and very close. But if your foundation is something outside and bigger than yourself, an idea that's larger than you, a community you're serving, a principle you're standing on, a vision you believe in that existed before you and will exist after you, then you're not carrying the weight anymore. You're standing on something solid. The person trying to build their business alone and the person building it as part of something larger are not different in their work ethic. The difference is in their load. One is carrying, the other is building. This is what think big, do big actually means. It doesn't mean thinking of bigger goals for yourself. It means recognizing that you are not the center of your own story. I know how that sounds. In a world that keeps telling you to be the main character, to bet on yourself, to build your personal brand, that might sound wrong. But stay with me. When you stop trying to be the foundation and start looking for the foundation to stand on, everything shifts. The anxiety doesn't disappear. But it moves. It stops being am I enough and becomes am I aligned? That's the difference between ambition and purpose. Ambition asks, how do I get bigger? Purpose asks, what is this already bigger than me, and how do I fit into it? When you're aligned with something bigger, you don't have to carry the emotional burden of making it happen alone. You're not betting everything on your own will. You're placing yourself in service of something stable that already exists, or that you're building with people who share the same foundation. A parent raising a child doesn't succeed because they're perfect. They succeed because they're rooted in something, love, responsibility, a vision of who that child will become. That foundation holds them when they're tired, when they're afraid, when they doubt themselves. A team building a company doesn't succeed because every individual is exceptional. They succeed because they're all standing on the same principle, moving toward the same North Star. When one person stumbles, the foundation doesn't crumble because it's bigger than any one person. An artist creating meaningful work doesn't do it for the applause. They do it because they've tapped into something bigger, a truth they need to express, a story that needs to be told, a vision that's larger than their own ego. That's what sustainable does. That's what doesn't exhaust you. That's what lasts. So the practical question, how do you actually do this? It's not about finding a mentor or joining a community, though those things help. It's about asking yourself a different question. Instead of how do I become bigger, ask, what do I already believe in that's bigger than me? Maybe it's a value, integrity, kindness, growth, create, serve, whatever resonates. Maybe it's a person or people. You're not building for yourself, you're building for them. Maybe it's a vision, not your personal wealth, but a world that works differently. Once you know what that bigger thing is, the next step is simple, but it requires honesty. Are my daily actions actually in service of this? Or am I pretending? Because you can lie to yourself for a while. You can tell yourself you're building a business when you're really just chasing money. You can tell yourself you're growing when you're just running away from yourself. You can tell yourself you're in love when you're really just afraid of being alone. But your body knows. Your energy knows. And eventually, you feel it, that hollow exhaustion that no amount of success can fill. When you align your daily small actions with something genuinely big that you believe in, everything changes. The small things stop feeling small. They feel like bricks in something meaningful. Your tiredness becomes the tiredness of building something real, not the exhaustion of chasing illusions. That's when you stop needing motivation. Motivation is what you use when you're not truly aligned. When you're aligned, you just keep showing up. Not because you feel like it, but because it matters. I'm not telling you to stop having personal goals. I'm not telling you to give up your ambition. Ambition rooted in something real is beautiful. But ambition rooted only in yourself will eat you alive. You'll eventually hit a moment where you realize, all this effort, all this proving, all this becoming, for what? For who? So ask yourself, what am I actually building for? And if the answer is just me, then maybe the real work isn't bigger goals. Maybe the real work is discovering something bigger than yourself that's worth building for. Because when you find that, your life doesn't become easier, but it becomes honest. It becomes grounded. And for the first time, the person you're building with is not exhausted by the weight. They're held up by it. That's the difference between thinking big and just thinking about yourself bigger. The difference between doing big and just doing more. Maybe the real question is not how much more you can carry, but what kind of foundation you are standing on. If you're building a life that you want to feel honest, grounded, and meaningful, you may want to stay with this channel. Because the biggest things in life are rarely built by force, they are built by alignment.